Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. We have a returning guest, Mr. Lewis Herms, who is joining us for part two of our last discussion, which was a very protracted view on his gubernatorial run for the state of California, which is frankly desperately needed as someone who lives here myself. And he was gracious enough to answer a lot of different questions and is gracious enough to come back on that and many other subjects where we're going to kind of round robin with him from geopolitical to financial to get his insights. So if you're new to the podcast, please, as always, do like, subscribe, and share. It helps the channel grow and others to gain in the knowledge you're currently being afforded. As I mentioned, Mr. Herms is running as governor for California for the midterms this year and beyond. He's a California native. You've seen him many times on mutual friend Nick Benyamin's podcast, where he talks about a bevy of different issues. And so, honored to have him back on once again. Mr. Lewis Herms, how are you doing today, good sir?
Fantastic. So good to be here, John.
Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. So, Lewis, let me start with you on no particular order of things. A lot of discussion about the EMS. When is it going to happen? It's necessary to happen. Just your own personal knowledge and speculation on this. When do you see it happening, and how do you see it playing out for the people to finally get the truth front and center as a whole?
I don't know if and when it'll happen, because what I believe what's really going on is a reversal of how we got here. And so how we got here is the baddies would use what I call the frog in the pot theory to slowly turn the heat up on us, and we don't know. And I feel like there's a reacclimation of sorts to do the same thing in the awakening. So they're slowly awakening because if there was one big shock moment, I think a lot of people would just freak out. So I believe it's a slowly awakening because what they want people to do, which makes sense, is they want them to take ownership as if they figured it out on their own. So a little piece here, a little piece there, and then therefore we own it. We're like, okay, we did the research, we figured it out. I looked into it, and I like that actually because it gets, if you give people just a piece, then they start to dig and do more investigations on their own instead of just being spoon fed. Why is that important? Because we've been spoon fed in reverse, and therefore we just go along with the narrative. So I kind of like this. That being said, there may be an EMS, and I think there actually should be when we get to a certain point where enough people are like ready for it. That's when I would like to see, maybe 3 days of just constant waking people up. I think that would just be fantastic. Predictions when, I don't know, although I will say right now, I feel like we are in the momentum phase of the awakening. So I would say it would probably be sooner than later.
Yeah, I would agree. And I don't know how we can't because there's just too many people who are not at the comprehension and coherency level that our audiences respectively are. And we need to bring them along. I mean, you want to be sensitive and compassionate, but at the same time, at some point, you got to give a friendly nudge, out the door. And so it seems to me like we're getting at that point. So I'm glad that you see it in a similar fashion. Tonight, we have a very important event, as you know, speaking of the president, with the State of the Union. Is there anything in particular that you're looking for him to say or that you'd be surprised to hear him say, or do you think it'll just be a series of talking points of what he's done to this point?
I would like to get away from the giving clues and just be very straightforward with the people. I don't want to read the tea leaves anymore. I'm exhausted in reading the tea leaves. I would love to see some massive awakening in this one. I would just love for President Trump to really just come out and just start hammering, boom, 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 boom. And I think it's important, and I've said this for a while, is I think what he should do is publicly expose the pedophiles that are Republicans first, because I believe that's going to bring everybody into the fold where they'll say, okay, well, maybe he's not just doing this for political reasons. Maybe there's something bigger going on here. And therefore, then that's kind of sets us up for this EMS or the awakening that we're talking about. So I would like to see some massive disclosures tonight. I think as the community that we're in, we certainly have earned it. So it would be nice to see it for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It's enough of the drip. It's time for the actual floodgates to just open up. It kind of
Yep.
goes back to the EMS discussion.
Yeah.
It just needs to come out. It's tarried long enough because again, in the process of saving the constituents of society, you're also making the patriots suffer as well. and there needs to be some type of balancing or rebalancing of the process. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask you a question I asked a guest I had just prior to you. And again, this is just stretching your knowledge base on the financial side, and then we'll push that into the California element. You brought up some really good points in our last podcast. So we have this manufactured conflict in the Middle East, particularly in Iraq and Iran. As you know, Israel is just itching to strike the Bashar nuclear power plants in Iran, where the Ayatollah is located, as they do not want a peace agreement established or the current regime. They don't want the current regime to stay in place. Do you see this as ultimately a false flag event, given what happened with Mexico? I know your wife I think you mentioned his wife is Mexican, so this plays for a personal level for you. We saw the drug cartel taken out this weekend as sort of a false flag. So staying in that, continuity of discussion, do you see that happening in the Middle East, and do you see it possibly playing out between now and the end of the first quarter?
Yeah, this is a tough one for sure because I don't trust the current Israeli regime as far as I can throw them. And it's so funny because people, when I'm running against them and people running for politics right now in California, they have the American Israeli flag, which I think is borderline traitorism. I think it just should be the American flag and the California flag. That's it in California politics, in my opinion. To wholesale support a country when you don't even know the deep state apparatus that's behind them is very, very scary, right? And I believe there's a deep state apparatus that is behind Israel. I believe there's a deep state apparatus behind Iran, ironically. So if you're dealing with two warring factions like that. Now, there is a huge issue with the propagation of the Muslim doctrine, though, going throughout the world. That's a major, major concern because what they are trying to do is they're trying to take over the world right now just by population, having more children than we have, and they're on a skyrocket level to do that. Well, many Muslims are still living under Sharia law, which is very, very scary. So I would not support Israel bombing the nuclear plant. I would like to see some intervention in there in support of the people that are rising up against Iran. That's what I would like to see because the people themselves, I believe, know what's best for Iran, and they finally have the courage to start rising up against it. And that's who we should be supporting and in talks with to see what we can do. Ultimately, they're going to have to take the regime from the inside out because if I don't believe that U.S. or Israel should be going in there at all. I think we've already eliminated the true nuclear threat, or President Trump pushed it back by at least 5-8 years, just with the three bombings that we have already done in there. So now, full transparency, President Trump's administration has a lot more information than I do. That's just based on the information I have. I don't like the idea of going in there.
Yeah, and that's fine. I wanted to get your personal musing, and you could be looking too potentially, Lewis, at Saudi Arabia playing the wild card, because that would split down the middle. But neither the U.S. or Israel, they have drones, they've closed off their airspace, and they could easily take out the Bashar power plants and be the 7-10 split in
Yep,
bowling terminology.
absolutely.
So that's
Which would be
something
brilliant, by the way.
which seems like a real possibility, and it would be brilliant. It would be the thing that people don't see coming. Israel, with the deep state side, the Khazarian mafia, if you like, would still take the hit, as the grave Israeli mistake, but it would bring about the surrender. And I will, in full transparency, admit to you that my question is a more overarching one as it leads to the finances. I'm going to tie that into one of your proposals for California in a moment. But we both agree, obviously, on God and precious metals being the backbone of the new economy, and that's where I'm going with this. But you have the corrupt Iranian proxies. Just it's the governments, right? It's not the people, like you were saying. We've had it here for years with the deep state. Iran has it, Iraq has it, but this is more to the overarching point of the currency reset we're watching for with respect to the dinar and even the Iranian rial, which there's people that bought it here before it got sanctioned. They stand to do extremely well, and obviously Iran is powering themselves up with the BRICS nations, Russia and China, to come back as a superpower. Everything seems to be suggesting that. So I guess my more specific question in the back end of the false flag, Lewis, would be, and again, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but in your knowing, would you see it sooner than later, these events transpiring out for Iraq, the people of Iraq and Iran to be free, both personally and financially?
Oh yeah. I say this year you're going to see a lot.
Yeah.
I say a lot, a lot. The tea leaves say it, and momentum's everything. So in marketing, we would always look for momentum trends because when you get to the momentum phase, and you get to the exponential phase, and the exponential phase is crazy, right? So it seems like we're reaching the momentum phase right now in this planet based on what we're seeing. Everything is in the momentum phase, and that's why I think people are very emotional. It's hard to handle, and people getting a lot of anxiety because there's just so much going on at one time, and it's not very clear because we are in the fog of war, because we are dealing with fifth generational warfare, not just on the bad guy side, but from the good guy side also. So the waters get very murky in there, and it's very hard. So that's why I say just trust in God and walk through the fog.
Yeah, that's a good simplified and true way to look at it. And that's all you can do. I mean, that's where, faith comes into play. And, Philippians 4:6-8, worry for nothing, but in all prayer and supplication, make your request known, and he'll provide the peace. So you're absolutely right. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it has to happen within the first half of this year to get momentum from a GDP standpoint before the fourth inauguration, where we would reasonably expect the republic to be restored, med beds and Nasara Jasara, which I know you're a proponent of. Talk about that for a second, because I think you can help provide some clarity. There's a lot of people who understand it, believe in it, have seen. I've got received texts and phone calls over the years, emails. Hey, my student loans, my credit cards, my this, my that got forgiven. It's inexplicable. I call the bank. They say they don't have a record of me, or it's already been paid, and blah blah blah. But there's still a lot of people who push back on that, who don't think it's real, think it's a hoax. Speak to those people, and how you can kind of show them the truth on it.
Yeah, and I've been very hard on a lot of people that have been proponents in the Sarajasara when they're just spewing some things without any evidence or without any suggestions behind on how it works. So uh, to give you the background, over 20 years ago, I was a premier writer on Iraqi dinar, the IQD. And I was the one person to say I'm going to step away until I see them sign an HCL, which is a hydrocarbon law.
Right.
I said if they don't sign the hydrocarbon law, nothing's going to happen. People say, well, why is that, Lewis? Well, there was a deal made with the Kurds, who was the major fighting force for Iraq, a long time ago, that they would split revenues on natural resources like gas, and oil that comes out of the ground, possibly even minerals like silver and gold, but for sure those other things. So I said logically there can be zero revaluation of the dinar until that is into law. It has to be codified into law because that's part of an agreement that they have to have. And the last thing they need is the Kurds, which was the best fighting force in Iraq, to start coming after the Iraq military. That would not be a good thing, and that would be a form of civil war. So that's why I've stayed. Now, the HCL law I know has gotten closer. It's been put up and pulled down, and so on and so forth. But I believe that's the last brick in the wall. So it is exciting to see that. And then I do believe there could be a revaluation of the dinar. Now, in regards to Nasara Jasara, I was really hard on people. So yes, I was hard on the dinar people because I believe there are a lot of dinar pumpers. There's people that take advantage. There's people that see a scenario and they do everything they can to better their self and give false information. Like every other weekend, the dinar is going to revalue, so go buy your dinar now,
Yeah.
right? Which is very wrong, and there's a lot of people involved in that. Same in regards to Nasara Jasara. There was a document that was put out, which was a false document, and it had 10 bullet points. One of the bullet points on there said that real estate will go down to the 50s level in pricing, and at the same time you're going to get somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a month. And I said, those two things don't go together. I understand the way supply and demand works. If you're feeding money to people like that, how on earth are you going to get the pricing down to the 50s? That doesn't coincide. And there were other things that were contradictory. Now, so I look for facts. If you go back to Libya under Gaddafi, they had the closest form of Nasara Jassara that we've ever had out there. So he had free flowing water. They had ample water. He was going at getting rid of the central banking system. There was free education. The healthcare was absolutely incredible, and he would revenue share with oil and other revenues that came in to the people and incentivize them for having children and getting married. I mean, it was very Nassar Jassara. It was working. They were thriving, and then Clinton's and their cronies go and they demonize him and take him out, right? So that was an aspect. I say to people, I say, if you believe in Nassar Jassara, that's awesome because there's actually a working model that was done previously, and that was in Libya, and he was just getting started. So yes, I believe in it. Yes, I believe that the dinar can revalue, but I'm also a pragmatist, and I want people to look at this stuff honestly and not with the rose-colored glasses, so they can see what's really going on, and they can look for markers.
Yeah.
And a good marker would be the HCL and the dinar, and other markers we're working on. Getting rid of the central banking system in this
Mhm.
in this country would be the first marker that Nassar Jassara is going to be flowing.
And that's happening right now because he's doing a parallel system, to your
That's
point.
exactly right.
And you're absolutely right. And you're also right about the Kurds. I think they represent 16 to 17%, were the largest factions with the most amount of militaristic ties. Also to Erdogan, not the best guy, but beside the point. And yeah, no, and you look at Iceland too. I believe Iceland years ago they went against the IMF and they removed all the debt. You look at Canada in 2019, Chase Banks removed a lot of their debt from the people and so forth. So we've seen little iterations, but obviously the public is looking for more of a overt groundswell to to your earlier point. So you're absolutely right about that. Um, a couple of things I wanted to talk about dovetailing off the discussion, Lewis, which I was excited about from our last discussion. You're proposing as the potential new governor a gold coin or digital stable coin, if you will, for the state of California. How would you do that? How would it work? And is it actually pegged to gold itself?
It would definitely be pegged to gold itself. 100%. And I have people a lot smarter than me that would work on the details of that. So I couldn't even give you how it's. So we're looking at it right now. It's not on the top of our list, but definitely it would be pegged to gold. It may be pegged to more than gold. It may be gold, silver. It may be resources in the ground like natural gas and oil as well.
Interesting. So a hybrid blend, whatever grows in the assets in the ground, basically.
Yeah, very similar to the way I believe that the IQD, the Iraqi dinar, is going to be valued.
Yeah, agreed. And the Vietnamese dong and many other
Same
countries.
thing. Exactly. I think it's very similar.
Let me ask you about that before we go into back to the gubernatorial aspect, because again, these kind of things sort of intersect anyway. It's been opined by certain financial subject matter experts, if you will, that the Vietnamese dong were, if I'm looking at right now, just let me look at the real time forecast. If you just bear with me a minute here, it's roughly about $87 for silver right now on the futures markets. If you look at Shanghai, it's considerably higher, as you know. But I think we're going to get back to that next leg up of 120 to 250, 280. It's been said that when we get to 150, 200 with silver, that the Vietnamese dong would be an ideal time to revalue because they are heavily backed by silver. Would you agree with that?
I would. I would. And if you remember, silver just got up to 125 and then took a dump really quick. It recorrected. So that
Oh,
means I think that's a test. They were testing the upside of that,
yeah.
in my
No, the
opinion.
Fed slammed it down to make their profits, but ultimately give us a buying opportunity to your overarching point. And I think it's going to leapfrog. Uh, I think pretty soon here, especially after the Clarity Act passes, I believe on Sunday, the first. I think that should have some effects to that point. Is that?
Yeah, I think everything's moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
There's a lot of scariness though. I mean,
sure.
give you an example. Some of President Trump's ties to other people are very concerning. But I've learned a long time ago that I think he may have people compromise, just like the baddies compromise somebody to do their bidding. I think the good guys can compromise somebody to do their bidding right now. Um, so we'll see. I'm watching the national play very closely because on how it implicates us in California.
I'm glad you brought, thank you, Liz. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you that question. So thank you for kind of going in that direction organically. We have a lot of people who don't understand what President Trump is doing. It looks one way, it's something else. Hey, I thought he wasn't working with him, but this guy's bad, this guy's good, and it's on purpose to misdirection. How could you, in your estimation, give some encouragement in a genuine way with facts to the audience that's watching that things are, it may look crazy and unpredictable and uncertain and a little bit tenuous, but in actuality, it's well in hand.
Well, I'll give something that I wrote about and posted a while ago, and then I'll get something that just happened in the last 2 days. So, when President Trump was bringing in a lot of what appeared to be Zionists into his cabinet, people were very, very concerned. And I mentioned, I said, I have a feeling this is a Trojan horse of sorts because the the Khazarian mafia type, the old guard of Israel is very, very, very powerful. And what happens is every time they can get a chance, they cry anti-Semitism. And when they do that, it freezes the people. They stop working. They don't do anything that they would normally do. What better way, if he is definitely saving Israel for last, what better way in order is to cozy himself up with what are people that they are considered known Zionists and part of the Israeli factions. What better way to get something done than do that while he's diminishing their infrastructure? So I call it the Trojan horse. So get rid of the Department of Education, right? That's under large Jewish control. Get rid of the central banking system. Get rid of the or cut the legs out of Hollywood. Cut the legs from the mainstream media. It goes on and on and on. Big pharma. It goes on. And so what he's doing to me is he's eroding the foundation of the Khazarian control mechanism while they look like they're his best friends. So they cannot say ever that he's anti-Semite. He'd be like, what are you talking about? Look at who surrounds me. I'm the farthest thing from an anti-Semite. Why he's actually constantly eroding their control mechanisms, which I think is absolutely brilliant. And
I agree.
and then there's the what just happened recently, which I was very concerned with on the face of it, is
Mm.
when he said that he's going to make glyphosate and the spraying of it paramount in the United States and how important it was. I was like, oh Lord, no,
Yeah.
please not. And I started to look into this and I noticed right away, I go, okay, wait a second. He's taking away the control from China, right? So they're not in control of that chemical anymore. We bringing it in house, so we are in control of it. And then I read a Bobby Kennedy post this morning, which made a lot of sense. We and I'm mega maha. People know that about me. But the reality is, I've talked to a lot of these farmers, right? They are so afraid to go into a regenerative farming or organic holistic farming where we are rotating crops and everything else. They don't see in their mind, they don't see how that could happen. I actually went to a farm up in Northern California where he tested. He says, here's an acre of crop right here with uh, the same type of corn seed that I would use over here. Only this corn seed was GMO, and it prevents certain bugs and so on and so forth. Well, the GMO corn produced at 2.5 times as much crop as his clean organic seed did, right? So he is very Maha like. He's I can't live like this. We can't produce a crop like this. So in essence, to summarize, what Kennedy said is while we're transitioning over, right, we need to take the control out of China's hands and we need to do it in house while we're transitioning over and bringing all the new things to us. Like there's laser farming and I have regenerative farming and there's actually farming where they can play music and have a higher production on the crops all these things that we're bringing to transition out of the chemicals. Because if it happened overnight, our our prices would probably quadruple, right? And we would have such a shortage of food, it would be unheard of. And then we would have to reach outside, and other countries would control our food even more than they do today. So I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. It's going to be a slower process, but we're acclimating ourselves away from the chemicals and bringing it into the regenerative farming, is what it appears to be happening.
It's funny because I just had this discussion that you should bring this up with another guest last week. That's one of our prominent guests, and she had the exact same concern. So it's funny that you're echoing that. So she was upset at first, and she thought, well, is this a grab away from China? And like you're talking about a slower, gradual wake up of the people with the EMS, if you will, doing the same thing on the health side. It's like kind of these different verticals are mirroring each other with effect, right? Where it's a to us, it's like we're impatient because we've been here a while, but we got to remember we once were blind too, and then now we see, right? So
Yeah.
kind of the same
And the
effect.
farmers don't have an appetite for it. I've been traveling all over if we say to farmers, tomorrow you're going to change into regenerative farming, they're like, no way.
Yeah.
It's just because they have to be educated. They don't see that it would actually be effective. So it's going to take a
Process.
little bit, but I think we're on our way to do it. I know we are. So I'm actually excited about the future.
Well, thank you, Lewis. That brings up another question I wasn't thinking about until you brought it up. But as your poll for governor, how are you working, or what is your strategy to address? I mean, because California, I mean, God, I mean, so many beautiful farms and crops here. I mean, it's the contrast of land is unbelievable. Going up from the coast. I mean, just me driving PCH alone, let alone going all the way through Santa Maria and all those specific areas. What is your sort of overarching plan for the farmers of the state of California to get back to organic farming without the need for sprays and pesticides and all these things, and get back to where we were before this all started?
So I am in general against government subsidies on virtually anything, with a big, huge except. I think we need to incentivize our farmers to move over to a regenerative farming, a holistic approach in regards to their farming, because there are such slow margins, and sometimes they go a year without even getting paid, right? There's such small margins that if I believe we can incentivize them to start building a healthier crop and transitioning their crops over. I know somebody, to give you an idea, I was on his farm. He's a great guy. It took 7 years to go from chemical farm to holistic farm, and he's not even all the way there yet. He's the same guy that tested the two crops that I talked about, right? So it takes a while because that soil has to heal. And but if we can give them some financial incentives to move over, because ultimately California needs to be the model of the healthiest place on the planet. And in order to do that, we have to have the best non-chemical farming in the world.
I agree. And Nasara started with the farmers, so how ironic that would come full
Isn't that
circle.
true? Great point. Great
They would,
point.
I mean, everything comes full circle to your
Yep.
because you brought that up. So yeah, so everything kind of works back together to the center. So I'm glad that you have a plan for that. One thing I was dying to ask you about, Lewis, on the last show, but we just had too many subjects. Your plan to save California could take 10 shows, and that probably wouldn't be enough. But it's definitely worthy of a part two. So I've had some time to chew on this. This has been a real problem. I know you're going to know the elephant in the room we got to talk about. And it's not just California, it's systemic around the country. Chemtrails.
Mm.
And we're seeing an uptick of them. And, I had a lot of sinus issues throughout January this year that was just really problematic. And a lot of people are getting sick, the super flu that's manufactured, the hacking, the coughing. Remember last year in 25, we had the manufactured laser fires, of course. And this year we had accelerated temperatures without said fires. So people couldn't use the fires as an excuse, whatever, geothermal, weaponization. But we had an abnormally hot January, and then now all of a sudden we got this nice little cold front, which brought necessary rain and so forth. But it's just bringing all kinds of health issues and weather manipulation issues that are just not good or normal. What is your plan to just kill that off and stop it?
Well, two is I would number one, I would make sure we have a tracking system for these planes that are going up and spraying. That's number one. Number two, I would activate the Air National Guard to go up, fly next to them, and drive them to the ground. And we would do a full investigation on every person and every plane and every corporation that was involved in this. Immediately, we would be accountable for doing that.
That's great, Lewis. But then that brings the question within the question. And my understanding is that a lot of time governors have that agenda, but they get usurped by the federal government who has their own plan. How would you mitigate that? Or by the time you get in, you think we'll restore the republic where he just brings it down to the states to deal with?
Well, I don't think I would be usurped by that because he'd have to contact me if they're going to and convince me why you spraying these chemical trails over here. If
Yeah.
it is if it's a Fed thing. At the point right now, we don't know, is it a rogue Air Force? Is it corporations? We don't know. The quickest way we know though is to send the Air National Guard up, go right next to them, take pictures of them, drive them to the ground and investigate. And this would be where I would ask forgiveness before permission.
Mm.
We drive them to the ground, and if President Trump or somebody wants to step in and say, hey, wait, let me show you what's really going on, great. It's time to explain. Like Ricky Ricardo said, you have some splaining to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a possibility you think that they've switched out the chemicals to good, or do you think it's still the toxic crap that's hurting us?
Okay, so there's a couple theories I've heard on the good side, and I'm not saying I'm buying that. I'm just saying it's theories I've heard. One is they're spraying hydroxychloroquine all over the place. I've debunked that completely because I ran the numbers and the trillions of gallons that they would have to put out in order to have any effect on us is absolutely it's astronomical. Could never happen. So that's total BS. I've debunked that just mathematically. Now, I have heard that there is some real issues with the ozone, not the fake issues that the globalists have said forever, but there's some real issues with the ozone, and they are spraying things in order to reset the ozone. The challenge is we've had people testing this stuff, and we know there's aluminum oxide in it and barium and some other things on it. And there was a fog in Ventura County that was just tested. It had all these challenges in it. So I, I'm not, I don't I'm not interested in our government trading our health for protecting the ozone unless they have a conversation with us. That's the biggest thing. Is you come out and you go, okay, here's what's really going on. We have this true problem. Here's how we're attacking it. In fact, we the people should be involved in more of this stuff. And here's John, this is a big deal for me. We have these secret scientists all over the place trying to protect us, right? Well, we have an amazing conglomerate of intelligent people that we don't even know about because we don't get them involved in the problem solving phase on anything. I think if we have a problem, we open source the problem and we turn it into a challenge where, hey, can you help us with this? And then you're going to get the smartest people involved, and the solution's going to come a lot quicker than if they have these little groups that are hidden doing it. Because a billion people working on a problem versus 100 people, you're likely to get the solution a lot quicker.
Agreed. And the last thing we need is more bureaucracy or a blue ribbon fact finding panel of do gooders who keep it to themselves
Exactly right.
when the people, number one, need to take action and probably have a better solution to begin with because they live it. It's not theoretical, like you said with the farmers, is actual, right?
Yep.
Switching gears for a minute, Lewis, but sort of on the same trajectory with your prioritization as potential governor. There's a lot of commercial real estate that's left town. You see Chevron, you see all in and out, you see all these companies leaving to go elsewhere. What is your plan to be able to bring not only those companies back, but new industry to California as well?
Well, you get rid of all the fake EPA regulations. There's a lot of environmental regulations that are just fake. And all they do is it's just a way to capture money from corporations and the people. That alone will probably drive businesses flooding back into California. But then when you do is you take the budget, which I believe is WARF, which I call waste, abuse, redundancy, and fraud, at about 75%. You imagine getting rid of that 75%? right? Then you get rid of property taxes, you get rid of income taxes immediately. Businesses are going to flock here. And then you give incentives to those that are creating jobs, right? And the economy is just going to boom. So what's interesting is we think that we have to beg these people to come back. They're going to come back naturally when you create the climate that makes it worthwhile for them to come back. Here's the reality. Most businesses want to be in California because of the weather, the open land, the access to everything. They can't be in California because of the political climate and the tyranny that we live in under financially.
Exactly, and that's where I was going with it. Also, you have anti-business mindsets like the franchise tax board, which is the killer. I mean, people go out of their way to get, incorporated or LLC'd or whatever, in some other state, Wyoming, South Dakota, because it's just more constitutionally and business friendly. So, how would you squash down the FTB? Do we even need them going forward?
No, you don't need them at all. Now, we have to be a realist. The governor is limited in power because the legislature is has a super majority. But that's okay because they were elected illegally and fraud vitiates everything. So we're gonna come in with massive investigations into election fraud. And when we can prove any seat that they took their seat illegally through a fraudulent election, now you have a new special election and we can put in the right person. So we're going to be able to turn this whole thing around, but we're not going to do it by running. We have to hit it head on with courage.
Absolutely. Now, last we talked, you said that you were making headway with your campaign. I think you were getting to the next level, if you will, of selection. Where are you at this point, and when will you have a sense that you're kind of closing the gap, if you will, to potentially win?
Well, we're definitely closing the gap. That's the good news. Now, permeating the top two conservatives is what the biggest struggle has been because the mainstream media only wants to talk to those two, right? They only want to produce those two. Right? One's a socialist, one's a criminal. So that should be a concern for anybody that's watching this race. The good news is now we have figured out a discussion that I won't say publicly to the news media is where they're actually paying attention to us. So we're on 3 days from now we're on a very large radio program in Los Angeles that is actually the largest political program out there. So that's good news. So we finally permeated that. We have some major podcasters that are conservatives that are now saying, okay, we need to pay attention to this guy. And we actually have local Fox News and an ABC station that are looking at us and they refuse to. But we made it very compelling. I'll just put it that way to them, and I believe we're seeing traction with that. We're gonna see a lot more of that, and all we need to do is just get our name out there, and we already know that we're gonna win the primary just getting the name out there. So we are starting to permeate the mainstream media, and we have some great things coming out in regards to social media, which is about 67% of the actual news that people are getting today.
It's great to hear. I think I saw last night, Lewis, on True Social, President Trump said that Gavin Useless was not going to be in the presidential race. But then do you even have to be concerned with him here? And how do you kind of knock him out of the way?
Okay, so Newsom he's timed out, so he's not going to run as governor here, but there's no appetite for him. And I'm talking Democrats. Let's take independents, Republicans completely out of the picture.
Right.
Democrats have zero appetite for Gavin Newsom. They figured him out. They know he's a liar. They know he does not have their best interests. They know he's controlled. In fact, many of them, because of Gavin Newsom, I don't even think are going to show up for the primary to vote for another Democrat. That's how disenfranchised they are right now. And so Gavin Newsom's done a good job at destroying the Democratic Party in California.
Yeah. And the people voting for him have not disappointed him and being underwhelming and failure, or overwhelming and failure here, I should say.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be a welcome breath of fresh air. Well, wow, Liz, this has been great. Thank you so much for all the information and the insight and the perspective that our audience needs to stay calm and focused and critically thinking at this point. As we typically do at the end of our podcast, just to respect you and the audience's time, any last thoughts that you have for the audience today, and where can people learn more about you?
Well, I would think, folks, we need to activate. This is we the people are taking our country back right now, but you can't do that from sitting on your couch. And I always say, I said, at the end of the day, do you want the impression to be larger than your couch or larger on what you've done for society? That choice is yours, right? I choose to give my all, which I hope more people would step and just give their all for we the people, because we're fighting for our children and their children and their children. And we are creating an incredible space for them in the future to live, which we haven't had for hundreds of years because of the corruption. So this is our opportunity right now to stand up and make your voice heard and tell 10 people. And if that's about my campaign, great. Or if it's about somebody else that you want to support, that's great. But we have to get active. We have to get involved. Now's the time where we can make the difference. And to find me, you can just go to Herms for CALI.com. It's HERMSFORCALI.com.
Sounds good. We will make sure to get that below in the video and in the link in the description. And folks, our sponsors are very good as well. If you're looking for foreign currencies or precious metals, we will leave those links in the description as well. Mr. Louis Herms, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time, your cogency, and expertise. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll get to see you on again in the not too distant future.
No, thank you, John. Appreciate you.